Hello, everyone. A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to the RPG Annual Investor Conference 2021. Hope you all are doing well and keeping safe. In the 8th edition of this conference, we have gone virtual for the very first time. And we thank each and every one of you for your participation. This session is for CEAT, where Mr. Anand Goenka, MD and CEO of the company, will be taking you through CEAT's strategy and vision. Post that, we will open the floor for Q&A. Please note that for your quick reference, all the presentations used during this conference are available in the resource center of our event landing page, which is www.rpgaic.com. With this, I now hand over the screen to Mr. Anand Goenka. Over to you, Anand.
Thank you, Shubha. Good morning, friends, and thank you very much for your interest in CEAT. Hope you're all well and your families are all well and safe during these difficult times. Over the next 20 minutes or so, I will take you through a little bit about our future plans for the company. Can we go to the next slide? The last 10 years of CEAT has seen our revenues go from 2,800 crores to 7,600 crores. We have also seen a 3.3x increase in our operating profits from 300 to about 1,000 crores. Our highest ever profit ever was in the last year, as well as net sales, despite it being a very challenging time. Our annual capacity has gone up from 550 tons per day to 1,300, about 2.5 times growth. Our distribution touchpoints have grown by 4x during this period, and our patents, which we had none about 10 years ago, has seen 25x growth in just the last 5 years to 100 plus patents, which reflects our focus on R&D and on innovation. Over the next 5 years, we continue this similar level of ambition. We would like to continue to maintain our leadership in the two-wheeler space and expand our leadership aspiration towards the passenger car and SUV categories. There's a lot of synergy between these two categories, and that's why we feel that this is a space and some capabilities that are aligned to the two that we want to focus on. On the truck and bus segment, we would like to be one of the strong players in India. The truck segment is one which gives us scale and relevance. And we're looking at 3x growth in the international business going forward. We have certain focus markets like Europe, where we learn a lot from, the US, which is important for the off-highway tire segment, and Southeast Asia, which is a fast-growing emerging market where two-wheelers is an important segment. So we're very focused and looking at strong growth in international business. Each category is like nearly a different industry. Each has their own specific needs, and I'll share with you some of the key areas that we are focusing on. So on the passenger space, the key capabilities needed to win are extensive distribution. Customers generally will not travel long distances if for a specific brand. Whatever is near their home, near their daily commuting path, they would go and buy tires from that location, and therefore distribution becomes very important. We've built a strong distribution in the two-wheeler space over the last 10 years, and we want to leverage this for the passenger car segment as well. We've been continuously investing in our brand during this period, and we will continue to do so, and that is important to stay in the consideration set for the passenger car customer. And we've had strong partnerships with IPL, cricket, and other forms of communication. On the truck and bus segment, the two key areas that matter are superior product and innovative service models. We've launched our new range of X3 series over the last year and a half, and we're seeing extremely good feedback from customers, and we're confident of strong growth in this space as well. And on the international business, we've been going customer backward, country backward on product development. And as I shared with you, seeding the right markets, whether it is from a learning perspective, whether it is focusing on high growth markets or areas of our strength, like the two-wheeler space, are the areas that we're going to be focusing on international business. We are leveraging 6 key capabilities to help us move towards these goals, and they are research and development, manufacturing, digital, distribution and brand equity, strong focus on financials, and people and sustainability. I'll share with you a little bit on what we are doing in developing each of these capabilities. On the R&D side, shall we go ahead? There are 4 key areas that we are focusing on. Compounding is one where we are continuously working on developing new materials. We are partnering with universities all around the world, in Germany, in India, other parts of the world, and working towards finding alternate materials in our products that will drive high performance tires, whether they are greener tires, more sustainable tires. They may result in longer life or optimization of cost as well. Industrialization too plays an important role, where we move from what we test in our labs to eventually what goes into the factory. In the tire space, industrialization can often take some time, and therefore reducing the product development time as well as digitalizing the same is something that we are focusing on. Similarly, talking about reduced time, testing in tires takes a long time. Sometimes you have to do actual on-road tests, which can take as long as a year, year and a half, because that's how long the life of a tire is. We are working on, again, advanced simulation systems which can replicate on-road tire performance with what we can do on a computer, and increasing accuracy of the results of what we get on a computer with what is happening on road. That will really help in reducing our testing capability and reducing our testing times and quick launch of tires as well. And some future technologies that we are working on are electric vehicles, on green tires as climate change becomes more and more important and relevant, and with the advent of digitalization and tires being the only touch point between a vehicle and a road, tires with sensors so that the customer, the fleet owner can get a lot more information on what is happening with tire or even vehicle performance on a certain dashboard or on the vehicle or on the mobile phone while they are driving. We have a short video to share with you on some of our tests that we carry out in different parts of the world. Yes, so continuing our focus on R&D, launching new products is very important. Some new products that we've recently launched, which are very customer backward, has been a puncture safe tire. It's been very well accepted. There are 3 states that we've initially launched in, and they solve the big problem in two-wheelers where you don't have a stepney tire. So if there is a puncture, you need to pull your vehicle to the nearest repair shop. With a puncture safe tire, all you need to do is take out the nail and continue to ride, because there is a self-sealant gel that is inside the tire which fills up the hole. And with women becoming more and more common in terms of riding two-wheelers, this becomes an extremely important pain point that we are able to solve for the customer. We've been also developing our Secura Drive tire and promoting the same, and that's been very well accepted. This is for the slightly premium passenger car segment. And our most recent launch was our farm tire called Vardhan for the domestic market, and that's too been very well accepted by customers. We continue to work with OEMs, and these are just some examples that we've launched in the last few months. Mahindra Thar, the Hero Glamour Refresh, Nissan Magnite, Renault Kiger, and Royal Enfield Interceptor. Just some of the OEMs that we've entered in the last few months. On the manufacturing front, we have 7 factories. Ambernath, outside of Bombay, is our off-highway tire facility. Halol does truck, bus, radial tires and passenger car radial tires. It is our largest plant today. Our older plants, which primarily do bias, truck, as well as off-highway tires, are in Nasik and Mumbai. Nagpur is our two-wheeler facility. We have our latest plant in Chennai for passenger car tires, and a cross-category tire in Sri Lanka. In our factories, we are continuously expanding. As I shared, Chennai is our latest facility, which is ramping up. Nagpur has also been expanded and is undergoing further expansion in the two-wheeler space. And our focus within the plants is on high levels of automation. As the industry moves towards Industry 4.0, that's going to be an important area that we're going to be focusing on. Flexibility in manufacturing is becoming more and more relevant today as your number of SKUs increase substantially, and we need to continue to produce so many more SKUs. So how do we increase flexibility without giving up efficiency is something that we are working on. TQM is an important part of how we work, and that's something that we continue to focus on in the factories, and safety and diversity. In terms of gender diversity in our factories, we are one of the most diverse plants. In Chennai, for example, we are targeting 40% women on the shop floor in manufacturing. We've also been adding capacities, and we have strong expansion plans in each of our categories. Historically, we've sometimes fallen short of capacities when the market has grown pretty fast. But now we have enough capacities in all future growth categories that we can leverage any upside that comes in the market. In the passenger car radial side, from about 8.7 lakh tires per month, we're looking at 14.5 in about 2 years' time. That's nearly 1.8 times growth from what we have today. On two-wheelers, from 33 lakh tires to 41. On truck bus radial, from about 100,000 to 50% growth. Bias will largely remain stable. On the off-highway tire side also, we have strong growth from 165 tons per day to 225 tons per day. And the others, we still are looking at, will largely be stable. Last mile is bias category. And Sri Lanka may see some minor growth. Those are announcements that we've not yet looked at it. There's sufficient capacity that is there in Sri Lanka, but it would be small capacities that may come up over a period of time. So we're very excited with the growth that we are looking at in terms of capacities. Our off-highway tire business has been doing well. Our products have been very well accepted, and we've launched new premium tires like IF and VF technology tires. These are high flexion tires which allow very heavy loading on tractors at the same level of inflation. We've also increased our channel partners by 2x. We've entered 6 new countries, and we've seen a 70% growth in Europe in sales in FY21. Our plant is well utilized, fully utilized today, but we're doing step-by-step expansion. One expansion gets completed as early as just next month, and a further next phase will be expanded over the course of the next 6 to 8 months. On the digital side, we are working very closely on improving our customer experience. With respect to search, today a customer goes online, reads reviews, checks out tire prices on Amazon, on Flipkart, and other websites. We are present with all of them. Once you've done your reviews, the customer may go online and choose to buy, and we have various options that are available for the customer. A tire is not something which you can just purchase online and it gets delivered to the home and the story is over. You still have to fit the tire. And therefore, we provide doorstep delivery fitment, maybe the only tire company in India to do that. We are also offering opportunity to pick up at the nearest dealer that is there, or just a delivery of tires at home where you can fit yourself. So all options are available to customers for online purchase. We've also identified 40 touch points of customers in their journey. And we're looking at improving the most important areas which are important for the customer. So it could be during product claim, it could be during search, and so on and so forth. To give you one example of a personalized customer journey, on Jan 2020, just an indicative date, the customer purchases and registers for warranty. In December, because we have information about the customer, we can send them a reminder for wheel alignment, and then continue to give personalized offers based on the vehicle that he or she has, based on what are their areas of interest, how frequently they would like to service their vehicle. And then when it comes to change their tires, we can again retarget them and offer them various services or new products based on their time to change. The dealer or the channel partner is a very important customer for us as well. And here we have the most advanced dealer portal in the industry. A dealer can now, earlier what would happen is that a territory leader would often go to the dealer and take an order on his notepad and then place the order to the CFA. He would also communicate various schemes, promotions, policies that are there going on in the company. Now, all of this is automated and visible to the channel partner online. They can place the order for tires online, and they will also get same-day delivery of the tire. They will have schemes visible and lots more information on when the tire will arrive at his store, what are the points that he gets if there is some kind of a discount or a special scheme that is going on. It frees up a lot of the salespeople's times, gives a lot of transparency to the dealer, and I'd say we are amongst the most advanced in the tire industry with respect to offering dealers a good customer experience. The other pain point very often for customers is if a tire comes for claim. So if there is a defect in the tire, earlier what would happen is the customer would go to the point of purchase, to the dealer, for example, and say there's a problem here. The dealer would keep the tire. Our salesperson would go inspect, check, is it a service defect? Is it a manufacturing defect? And accordingly, clear the tire for payment to the customer, or say that no, it has been misused, so that cannot be adjusted. And that entire cycle could take anywhere from 3 to 7 days. This we have moved to a simple WhatsApp chat process, or even on the dealer portal, where the customer or the dealer takes images, shares it online, and an approval that yes, this is going to be cleared would come in just 15 minutes. So it's a big pain point where the customer gets immediate gratification or knowledge of what is going to happen to a claim tire. So these are just some examples of what we are doing on the digital side. With respect to investment in brand equity, despite last year being a very uncertain year, we continued to invest in our brand. We signed up Amir Khan as our new brand ambassador, and we launched a Don't Be a Dummy campaign, and we will continue to have Amir Khan as our brand ambassador going on to this year as well. We continue to be partners with IPL Strategic Timeout, and we also launched our newest Puncture Safe campaign called Keel Wale Baba this year in a few states. I think it's time for a strategic timeout, and we have some ads to share with you on what we've been doing.
आज कौन सा टेस्ट है?
सर वो सडन ब्रेकिंग टेस्ट करना था ना।
वो तेरी, मैं क्रैश टेस्ट डमी हूँ। डमी नहीं, जान मुझे भी प्यारी है यार। सीएट सिक्योरा ड्राइव। बात सेफ्टी की। डोंट बी अ डमी, स्विच टू सीएट सिक्योरा ड्राइव।
ये हैं कील वाले बाबा। कील पे सोना, कील पे धोना, पर बाबा के भक्तों का था एक ही रोना।
प्रभु, हमारे गांव में भी दर्शन दो ना।
बचा दो कीले, आ रहे हैं हम।
प्रभु इतनी दूर चल के जाएंगे?
बाबा की लीला चुभा नहीं कीला।
थैंक्स टू सीएट पंक्चर सेफ की रीजन टेक्नोलॉजी, जो छेद होने के बाद भी हवा निकलने न दे। सीएट पंक्चर सेफ, इट हेल्प्स।
चल ठीक है, सी यू ऑन मंडे। हाँ, बाय।
मैं भी भागता हूँ। रिक्शा रिक्शा रिक्शा। अरे यार
ध्रुव, हे ध्रुव,
हाय।
मैं छोड़ देती हूँ।
नहीं नहीं, इट्स ओके, आई विल टेक एन ऑटो यार। ऑटो 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 ऑटो।
मैं वहीं जा रही हूँ, छोड़ दूंगी।
Joined by Mr. Kumar Subaya, CFO of CEAT. Welcome, Kumar. Participants are requested to either drop their question in the Q&A box, or they can ask their questions live through the raise hand option. Both these options are at the bottom of your screen. We will wait for a moment as the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Ashutosh Tiwari. Ashutosh, please unmute yourself and go ahead. Ashutosh, are you there? We'll take the next question from the line of Mr. Siddharth Bera. Mr. Siddharth, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks and great set of presentation, providing a lot of insights. Sir, my question was on the demand outlook. I mean, I understand FY22 will be a year of recovery, but after that, can you share some thoughts about how do you look at the demand playing out sustainably over the next few years? This is because I see that OE volumes actually in the last 9-10 years have not grown much. So in that backdrop, how to look at the demand outlook? And second is on the capacity. Obviously, we are doing a lot of capacity. So, I mean, will there be any issues in absorption of that capacity? So some thoughts on that. I'll ask for other questions after that.
Sure. Hi, Siddharth. So in the short term, for this quarter, certainly demand has been challenging with the entire lockdowns, etc., that have happened in April and May. June, things are beginning to get better with replacement demand continuing to see some uptick. OEM may take a little bit of time, and the export market really never lost pace because the global markets have been very positive. The last 5 years for the industry has been quite challenging with respect to growth for the auto industry. Every year there has been something or the other that has dampened spirits. So whether you look at BS6 emission norms from a demand side, while it's of course a good thing that happened, but it affected demand. The other was GST, you had demonetization, you had something or the other coming up every year. I think a lot of the base capacity has now got adjusted, and I think we are geared for strong growth going forward in the auto sector. I think there's been too much or continuous bad news for 5 years or changes that have happened. So I'm very optimistic about demand going forward. And for us, I'd say we do our long-term, we don't set up capacities from a just growth ambition point of view, but it is very planned out that, okay, we expect GDP to grow this level here. In certain areas, we are confident about increasing market share. We have some OEM commitments that are there. There are certain new countries that we are entering. So looking at all that information, we choose the capacities that we need to set up. And that's how we plan. So we are very confident about utilizing our capacities.
Sure, sir. My second question is on the this TBR segment. We have a plans of becoming the top 3 player in that segment, and we are doing a lot of long-term capacity expansion also. Do you think, I mean, in terms of strategy, because in the past we had focused a lot on the B2C segments where we have been so successful. So do you think there will be any changes in strategy required to gain significant share in this TBR segment in terms of dealers or R&D or anything else? Because it's a more competitive type of segment, and I mean, what can be the changes in strategy to look forward to?
Right. So our strategy largely remains more focused towards the passenger segment. On the truck radial segment, our market share is somewhere around 7% or so. On the truck bias segment, it is around 13%. We would like to take up our truck radial market share to somewhere around that 13 to 15% market share over time. It is very important to be in the truck radial largely for the purpose of scale and relevance. And that's how we are looking at this segment. We've defocused the truck segment, I'd say in the earlier part of the last decade, but over the last few months, or couple of years, we've increased our focus towards there. We are setting up now capacities, but the trade-off is that we want to win in the passenger space. In the truck space, we are okay with having about 13 to 15% market share going forward.
Sure, sir. Understood. And any number you have for this PCR and two-wheeler also? What market share should we like to see in next few years?
So on the two-wheeler side, we are at about 28 to 30% today. I'd say that if from a goal or ambition perspective, if we can reach somewhere between 30, 35%, that would be good. On the passenger space, we are somewhere around 12, 13, maybe closer to 13, 14% market share today. We would like to go at about close to 20% market share.
Okay, sir. Understood. I'll come back.
Thanks, Siddharth. We'll take the next question from the chat box. This question is from Mr. Vivek from DSP. He says, you spoke about research. Is there a measurable difference in performance between various tire manufacturers based on product technology? Is there anyone you would regard as a leader in this? Are there any patented technologies?
Yes, so I would say that the way we look at it is we've developed platforms in each category of tires. For example, on two-wheelers, we have a pattern called the grip pattern. And there we scientifically measure and benchmark with competition. And we have certain targets, for example, on grip, our wet grip, our dry grip, our various other parameters, braking distance, etc., has to be a certain level of performance higher than competition. So that is how we generally plan that at that value proposition that we want to offer, it should offer a certain improvement for the customer. Similarly, when you look at our mileage X3 for the passenger car side. We were the first to come out with a 1 lakh kilometer tire, which is very relevant for, say, taxi drivers who are looking at long life, cost per kilometer, and so on and so forth. So there is a clear measurement from a customer backward point of view that R&D delivers. And there is a difference between tires in terms of, for competitors, between performance. With respect to patents, yes, they do matter. I think they're relevant from the perspective that, of course, competition cannot copy anything new that you're working on. And it also drives a lot of the internal employees and R&D team to be a signatory or the owner of a patent in a way. I think it's essential for any technology-led company to have multiple patents. Some of them are directly beneficial. Some are maybe not imposable very easily because you don't have visibility of what others are doing in the market.
Thank you, Anand. Next, we'll take the question from line of Mr. Hitesh Goyal. Hitesh, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yeah, hi Anand.
Hi Hitesh, good morning.
Hi Kumar. My question is more on the electric two-wheeler space. We are seeing, I think we are at the cusp of electrical two-wheeler revolution in India, given what government is doing and how battery prices are coming down. So I wanted to understand, have we won any orders from the new guys like Ola and all in the electric two-wheeler space? And also, how is the pricing of a tire? Is there a difference right now in an electric two-wheeler scooter versus a normal scooter?
Yes, we are there with nearly all electric vehicle two-wheelers from a supply perspective. Our share of business with all electric, even the small players, unknown players, small players. I mean, if you were to name, you have Ather, a company called Tork, Okinawa, Ola, and many others. So two-wheeler being our core, we have to be there. Those are areas which are high growth, even if we are supplying sometimes as low as 200, 300 tires, just because demand may be low on the auto side and they're just developing. We want to grow and develop along with them. Our share of business with many of them will be somewhere between 50 to 100% share of business. And overall in the market, we would be at about 50% market share with the OEM customers. This is just an approximate number that I'm sharing with you. In terms of pricing and margin, not much difference. I think it's still too early. They're very small as a share right now. So we are present with all of them.
And my second question, if I can take, also, I'm quite impressed with your market share ambitions because of which you are actually expanding capacity. Can you talk about what is leading to this market share gains for the Indian players? Like, we are seeing Bridgestone losing out a bit, MRF slightly. So what is happening? I mean, what is happening at the competition end and what you guys are doing differently, which is helping you gain market share? And why you're so confident in the next 3-4 years, this market share will expand at a significant pace? Can you give some sense on that?
Yes. So I would say two or three areas come to my mind. One is on the product side. We did not have multiple platforms. We were largely there with the commuter segment. As in the passenger car side, we now developed a platform called Secura Drive, which is for the slightly more premium segment. And we will be launching more platforms for the even further premium segment over time, over the course of as early as this year. With that, our product range will get a lot more completed. We've, of course, continued to invest in the brand. As a percentage of our own sales or even absolute spends, we would be one of the highest spenders in the industry. And that, of course, has an impact in the longer term with respect to tires. Finally, on distribution, we have been expanding our touch points extensively. So the two-wheeler space has been anyways a strength of ours where our touch points have been multiples of competition. Now you can leverage that for the passenger car space as well. In the last 1 year, during COVID times, I'd say the first 6-8 months, we were the fastest to ramp up. The pace at which the industry bounced back was something that nobody anticipated in the months of June, July, August after the lockdowns. And I think our relationship with our workers, the safety norms that we were able to set at that time, I'd say the resilience of the team was incredible, the pace at which they were able to ramp up our capacities. And at that time, when market demand was high and we were able to supply first. We were able to take advantage of that. We added nearly 600 to 700 new dealers to our entire channel base, and that has helped increase our share as well.
Yeah, so just to elaborate on that point, so the other guys must have faced a lot of supply constraint, and you guys were much better in managing that. But taking a call on that only for next 4-5 years, that market share can increase until there's a major shift in terms of, like you said, new segments you're getting into. So I don't know what part of that segment was at, but part of the total market that you're entering that and you can gain market share. But is there a supply constraint main reason for your market share gain last year, or it is distribution and product also which is playing a big role and which will help you in next 3-4 years? Because
no, in the last year, what happened is our market share in the passenger car space was somewhere around 10-11%, say in FY20. Now, if you look at last year, first 6 months, this market share number went up to about 17-18%. That is not sustainable because of the entire vacuum that you saw. It was maybe a temporary blip. But after that, our market shares have adjusted, but we have seen a 3% increase 3 to 4% increase in the passenger space, for example, another 3% increase on the truck space, which has sustained when everyone's capacities came up, say from October, November, December onwards. And that is what is giving us confidence that this is there to stay. And I shared with you some of the longer term initiatives that we are looking at. For example, in the more premium categories, we were not present at all. If you look at our share of, say, 16, 17, 18 inch, it was a very small share. Now, with the new platform launches, we'll be moving from a smaller, pretty small share to whatever we do will be a market share gain in that sense. Because these are new platforms that are launching and we were not catering to those customers. Today, if you have an Audi, you would have not got a CEAT tire for an Audi. By the end of this year, we will be launching platforms for such vehicles.
Yeah, great. And I think that will help the brand a lot. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, Sai, one more point is that about 2 years ago, when I used to visit the market, our biggest pain point was OEM presence. So they would say that CEAT's OEM presence has been relatively lower. And that's, of course, a long-term investment that you have to build on, because by the time you get approved from an OEM, you're able to supply, and finally the customer receives it and needs to change the tire. That will take some time. Now our share of business with many of the OEMs has increased also substantially. And that is now going to have an effect on replacement demand going forward.
Thank you, Anand. We'll take the next question from line of Mr. Jinesh Gandhi. Jinesh, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, am I visible, audible? Sorry.
Yes, you
Jinesh.
are.
Yeah, so firstly, just a clarification on TBR side. So our aspiration is to get to about 13 to 15% market share and not necessarily among top 3 players. Is that right?
That's right. So I would say if we can be at about 13 to 15%, we would be happy at that. I think that will give us the scale and relevance in the market.
Understood. And secondly, on the TBR side, given that that's the most competitive segment of all the tire categories, we are more than doubling our capacity over next 3 years. So what is our strategy to improve our market share in TBR segment as such?
So I shared with you the 2 big areas that we are working on. One is on the product side, where we've launched our new X3 series, which has been very well accepted by the customer. And if your product is good, demand picks up quite easily and automatically. The second area is on providing innovative services to the customer. One is a basic level of service. For example, is the tire that is getting fitted for the right application? You do a scrap tire analysis, for example, at the end of use to see, okay, if there was something wrong with the tire, is it a wrong application? Has the mileage been lower? What is wrong? And you service the customer accordingly. The other is higher quality of services, such as things like driver training, such as pay-per-use is something that we have launched with many key customers, where we are baselining how the tire performs, what is their current cost per kilometer, committing to them a higher cost of kilometer because of our confidence in our product, and so on. So these are some new services that we are launching with fleets directly.
Okay, that's good to know. Secondly, with respect to the capacity additions which we have talked about, what's the kind of investment will we need to make from the capex perspective?
Kumar, would you like to elaborate on the capex needed?
Yeah, sure. We have made an announcement to add another 3,000 tires of truck and bus radial capacity at Chennai. It will be implemented in 2 phases, so of 1,500 tires per day, and the likely implementation of phase 1 is say 2 years from now, and it involves an investment of approximately about 1,205 crores. Okay, and so because we are splitting it in 2 phases, investment will also happen accordingly. So first phase would involve around 700 crores and balance is about 500 crores. So that's as far as the new capacity and expansion is concerned. But existing investments in the 3,500 and truck and the specialty, we still have some capex to be spent, particularly on downstream and on automation. That'll be spent in the next 2 years, next 2 financial years.
So effectively, would it be fair to say our annual investments for next 2 years, FY 22-23, would be upwards of 1,200-1,300 crores per annum?
We are expecting the investment to be around 1,000 crores for the current year. Okay, and this was our plan in the beginning of the year. Considering the current situation, we will keep observing in terms of how the market is, and accordingly we'll readjust the capex. And the next year could be in the range of around 800 crores is our current estimate. Okay, so yeah, around that range, 1,000 to 800 crores kind of a level.
Okay, understood. And lastly, with respect to exports, because that is also another area of focus with the target of 3x in 5 years. So how do we plan to grow there? I mean, we talked about broader areas, but any particular markets which would be targeting? I mean, OTR might be a relatively smaller contributor to it, but from the mainstream tire perspective, what would drive that?
Yes, so on the mainstream, we are talking about passenger car tires to Europe, where we've been expanding our range. We're looking at good growth in Europe. We're looking at truck radials at some point in the international market for particularly, again, Europe at this point of time. We've not yet started supplying there, but maybe in about 6 to 8 or about a year's time, I would say we'll be ready to supply. And that's a very large truck radial market that we're talking about. And Southeast Asia for two-wheelers in Indonesia. It's the second largest two-wheeler market in the world. And this we are doing through substantial customer insighting, understanding what are the specific needs and developing products for all of these markets. It's not just that, okay, we have some excess capacity in bias or radials, so let's supply Indian need tires to these countries. We've been working on these for the past couple of years and launching tires in each of these countries for those specific needs and applications. So Southeast Asia, Europe are the 2 big markets. And for the off-highway tires space, it is going to be US and Europe.
Okay. So would we need to realign our marketing spends towards exports more than domestic now, or we'll have to increase our marketing spends for this?
No, not really. Marketing spends usually are done, we sell through distributors. The distributors incur some amount of investment in marketing in those countries. They sometimes take that off from the margin that they earn or in terms of pricing. So net, there is no major change. We have a budget for marketing also that we do, but I don't think we see a visible shift in that sense.
Got it. Thanks.
Thanks, Dinesh. We'll take the next question from the Q&A chat. It's a 2-part question. The first one is, could you throw some light on the current demand scenario, both OEM and replacement, across tire categories? Ongoing second wave has seen a weaker rural demand. Would this be applicable to our business as well? This is the first part of the question. The second one is on the commodity and input prices, that they have risen sharply, and current trends indicate the impact on gross margin would stay at least for the medium term. How are we dealing with this?
Sure. So on the demand side, Q1 has been clearly worse than we had expected. Demand, I'd say, all the way until the first week of April was looking to be very strong. We saw growth numbers of 20 to 30% kind of growth year-on-year numbers. In fact, because of low base effect in Q4, we saw about close to 50% growth in Q4. We were hoping for substantial growth in this quarter as well, but unfortunately, with the COVID waves coming in, all categories got affected. You saw OEMs shutting down capacities. You saw replacement demand getting hit. Somewhere between, I would say, 20 to 40% of our plans on the replacement side, we have seen a slowdown to that effect. But June, things are beginning to pick up as markets open. There is a question mark. Certainly, the demand will bounce back, but will it bounce back like last year is, I'd say, still to be seen, because people have had to dip into their pockets for medical expenses. You've had a lot more personal humanitarian impact. Nearly everyone has lost some friend or family member, which has had an impact on psyche as well. So the bounce back may not be as quick or sharp as what we saw last year. But certainly we will go back to normal levels sometime by the, I'd say, early part of Q2 in terms of demand. With respect to commodity prices, Kumar, would you like to share?
Commodity prices continue to be remain high. Okay, and as you aware, the raw material contracts are finalized at least 2 to 3 months in advance. So, and the impact, as we had indicated during Q4 investor call, that around 8 to 10% kind of an increase we're expecting in Q1 versus Q4. Okay, and so Q4 had also gone up. The large part of the gross margin erosion that we saw in Q4 versus the previous quarter was also on account of commodity prices. So it continues to be, commodity market continues to be bullish, because crude now is finding a base at $70 level, and in fact the current levels are 2-year high. So, and other commodities also, steel, natural rubber, many of them are following the same trend. So we expect the commodity prices to remain at current level. We don't expect the prices to go up significantly from current level, but the prices are likely to stay at current level even in the coming quarter.
And a few areas that we are working on are continuous price increases. There are price increases that have happened in April, May, and will happen again towards the end of this month as well. That will help take up our gross margins. I'd say Q1, of course, will get hit because of the lag between commodity price increases, consumption of high-cost material, and the ability to take price increases. So we do expect an impact on margins versus the last quarter. We've also worked on cost cutting. Last year, we had embarked on a large cost-cutting initiative, looking at about at least 150 crore kind of cost saving. I'd say we've realized about half of that. And over the course of the year, we hope to realize another half, the balance half of that cost saving, which will be sustainable in the longer term as well.
Thank you, Anand. We'll take the next question from the line of Mr. Chirag Shah. Chirag, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity and congrats for a great presentation. So I have two questions. One on this digitization and automation that you referred to. On the manufacturing side, how do you measure the improvement in performance, versus the newer plant versus the older plants? How do you internally measure the improvement in performance?
Right. So we measure based on certain parameters, what we call as PQC BSM, which is productivity, quality, cost, delivery, safety, and morale. So whatever initiatives we are doing has to result in one of these parameters changing. From an old plant to a new plant, anyways, you have basic levels of automation. For example, in an old plant, you may have a lot more manual work. In a new plant, you'll have more button pressing, and therefore you'll have much fewer people, and therefore productivity can be nearly 2 times. That is half the number of people needed in the newer plant. Then, as you talk about digitization, there'll be further initiatives such as, say, predictive maintenance, which will result in lower breakdowns, which will result in therefore lower scrap, which will reduce cost, for example. Also higher output. And I'd say the biggest metric that matters eventually is what we call as overall equipment efficiency, or OEE, which is the output of the plant. So can we increase our output with no capex, or can we make sure that all the machines are delivering as per what is expected based on the project norms that were set out, or based on the maximum machine utilization that is there. So those are some examples of output of digitalization that can come. And then you have things like zero defects that are there, increased safety because of certain alarms that you may be able to set forth, and so on and so forth. So those are just some ways that we measure and we see the difference on digitalization.
And how do you intend to monetize it? Is it in terms of market share, or better ROCs, or better margins? How do you intend to monetize this improvement?
So the monetization will come in the form of a lower conversion cost or higher output at the same investment. So today we are producing, say, 20,000 passenger car tires in Halol factory per day. Can we take this up to 22,000 by increasing our OEE? Which means today if you are investing say 7-8 crore per ton of investment, and you're getting 5 tons extra, you're saving 30 crore of 50 crore of capex that you would have otherwise done.
Okay. Yeah, so this is helpful. And second is interesting presentation on the pain points aspect that you did. Now, in your assessment, how much time it takes for you to improve your brand equity because of these efforts? And when this process was started, is it a new initiative, or it is a slightly older initiative?
So these are initiatives that have been going on, say, for the last year and a half's time. I'd say brand equity is a combination of many aspects. I mean, in the end, what is a brand? A brand is a promise that you give to the customer. And what is that promise that the customer is expecting is the overall image of the brand, which may include things like a certain level of performance, a certain quality of service that he gets when he walks into the shop, convenience at various touch points that are there, etc. So it takes years to build that brand equity in a way. These will only largely enhance it. What we are trying to do is, out of, say, 40 customer touch points we have identified, some are very important. And we are focusing on those 7, 8, 10 customer touch points, which are very important, and we need to be at a very high level on those touch points. And if that were to happen, hopefully it will result in more and more repeat purchase. Difficult to quantify, put a number to the impact that can happen.
One way of quantification would be your pricing versus your peers. If you are at a discount, whether the gap is bridging or not. So can you share some light on that? How across various products like two-wheelers or PCR or trucks, for example, or tractors, where are you today versus what it was, say, 1.5 years back or 2 years back? And it may not be across India, but in certain regions where you have achieved success.
Right. So I'd say it varies category to category. So for us, two-wheeler is the strongest where we operate. So we would be pricing our tires to the channel, possibly at the highest price in comparison to competition. So our net realizations would be the highest versus, say, truck radial, where we have invested, where we have started growing, and our traction for our product has improved. And so the margin gap, or I would say the pricing gap, has come down. We would be maybe at about a percentage and a half lower. But I would say that even mix makes a difference to the net realization here. And on the passenger car side, we would also be at about a percentage to a percentage and a half lower than, say, maybe the leading player in the market today.
Yeah, thanks. I'll come back for more questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Chirag. The next question is from the line of Mr. Ashutosh Tiwari. Ashutosh, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the presentation. So my first question is that, like you highlighted that the new launches in PCR and TBR both, and we have seen a sharp increase in R&D expenses over last, say, 3-4 years from C8, and that has led to improvement in quality. So can you quantify like what kind of improvement that we've seen in say PCR and TBR in terms of the life of tire versus or earlier tires, and how do you benchmark now versus some of the leaders in the segment?
Yes, so on the passenger car side, we would be, again, it is platform wise. So our long life tire would be the highest in the industry. I remember at one time, the life of our tire was about 65,000 kilometers for the long life tire. Competition was maybe at around 75,000 tires, or not on average competition, but the best product in the market. We then launched about a 1 lakh kilometer tire. So to that extent, we have clearly shown an improvement with respect to life of our mileage X3 tire. You have other tires which offer better grip or they are more sporty off-road, on-road conditions. There is always a trade-off with respect to mileage, grip, rolling resistance. So for that value proposition, we work towards always being better than competition in that space. On the truck side, we had a problem in the past where our tires, we anticipated truck radials to be largely used in the normal load condition, which did not happen. And therefore, we had a challenge. There were tires that failed. I'd say this was sometime around 2012-13 kind of time period. We then developed new tires, and I'd say our latest launch, which is the X3 level, is at par with the best tire in the industry.
Ashutosh, any further questions from your end?
Yeah, that audible. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
now
in the PCR segment, how the mix of the 12-13 inches tire has changed? Like say, if 5 years back you're selling more of 12-13 inches in overall sales, how did it change now?
Yes, we would have seen at least, I can get back to you on the exact numbers, but we have, I'd say in the last 1 year, seen about a 5% shift in terms of higher inch sizes. So if higher inch sizes was about 15%, they would be about 20% today, approximately. But I can get back to you on the numbers.
And last question is that if I look at your margins versus the peers, despite having a better mix, because we have a large proportion of two-wheeler tire, 30%, industry average will probably be 15%. And we also said that we have the highest pricing in the two-wheeler segment. Our margins are quite lower than the peers. And you mentioned that our A&P expenses are higher, but if I really compare A&P expenses versus the peers, probably we spend 2.4, 2.5%, and peers are around 2%. So that is not a big difference in the A&P versus the peers. So what basically where we are lagging in this on margin front, and how do you see this margin over a say 2-3 year period? Will it improve, and what level are we looking at?
Right, I'd say in the last year we invested a lot on adding people for expansion in advance. So we set up Chennai factory as well as our truck radial facility in Halol. There we had to add a lot of people in advance for the purpose of training for future output to grow. Now, and so we incurred a fair amount of people cost at that time where we were not able to get the entire benefit. So we are growing, but we are planning for the future. That was one element which had an impact on our costs. A&P is one area where we are clearly investing more than competition. And the third, in part, could be a little bit because of scale also. There are certain scale disadvantages that are there in terms of us being, say, the fourth largest in comparison to, say, the two larger players who are nearly double our size. We also have a couple of older factories, Bhandup and Nasik, where there is a higher cost of people that we incur there. These are the few top of mind things that do come. Kumar, would you like to add something?
Yes, Anand. Few things in the new factories. We recruited people ahead, which you covered it also, at least 6 months ahead in Chennai factory, Nagpur. And all the costs that we incurred at Chennai, because our Nagpur phase 2 or Halol phase 3, for the new capacities or incremental capacities, the costs were higher. For example, in a new factory, the scrap cost would be higher. New product development cost would be more, say at Chennai or Nagpur. Those costs also added, not small, it's substantial, because we commissioned our plant in February last year at Chennai. and April, May, June we didn't run, but all the costs went into P&L. July onwards, the ramp up was very gradual. So those are one time in nature. It's also possible that amount of expenses that we incurred during this COVID period in terms of making our plant safer. So the SOPs that we followed for canteens, transport, etc., there could be a difference also between us and maybe a competition. I think largely to do with new capacities that we have created, that we scaled up last year. Okay, and those costs would have had some disadvantage over competition because of initial period of production, in addition to what you already covered.
So like the gap is only 3 to 4% versus the peers in the margin today or last 3-4 years. So do we think that for whatever steps you're taking, this gap between the margin can bridge over the next 2-3 years? I mean, may not be fully, but partially.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ashutosh. The next question is from the line of Mr. Nitij Mangal. Nitij, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yes, hi, good morning. Thank you for taking my questions. Firstly, when you look at, let's say, the next 3 to 5 years or so, how do you see tire as a product evolving? Do you see any meaningful drivers for value outpacing volume? Of course, excluding any cost push aside. If you can throw some light on that. Thanks.
So the 2 or 3 key changes that I see happening in terms of technology and customer buying preferences are related to the 4 changes that are happening in the automotive sector, which is commonly used in the acronym ACES: Autonomous, Connected, Electric, and Shared Mobility. With these 4 changes coming in, preferences of customers may change. So with the growth of, say, the Olas and Ubers of the world, who is going to be your future customer? Is it going to be the owner of the fleet of Ola cars? Is it going to be the driver? Because today, if you're going to be driving in an Ola vehicle, you're not going to be looking at the tire. So the entire customer profile, for example, will undergo change there. With connected vehicles coming in and our unorganized large fleet segment, you are seeing technology-led fleets like Rivigo and BlackBuck coming in, and there can be more organized entities there. And there's a lot of information that is now getting available to fleets, such as driving habits. For example, do they drive down the slope on neutral gear, and what is the impact on the braking system and safety, for example? Theft of fuel and visibility of that, and so on and so forth. So the connected vehicle will give a lot of information similarly on tires. And the tire can be a source of information for the vehicle, which can connect to the OBD as well. So that's another example of change. And then, of course, the entire electric vehicle piece, where there is a fair amount of technology change that happens to the tire as a result. It is not I'd say, path-breaking change, but it is a mix of substantially reduced noise on the tire, increased rolling resistance, the ability to take extra load, and increased torque of the vehicle, which the tire has to adapt to. So with all these changes coming in, there will be maybe much more change than we've seen, say, in the last 20 years. But do we see anything beyond around? It will still, I think, be round and black and filled with air, at least for now.
Okay, thanks. And if I can ask one more question. So here, how do you see ESG issues playing out for the tire industry in coming years? And I guess maybe first globally and then in India. We have seen ESG resulting in some very severe pressures in metals and mining kind of sector. How do you think of tires as an industry in that backdrop?
So I think 2 changes, big changes that come to my mind. One is that there is pressure on the auto industry to improve emission norms as they move from BS3 to 4 to 6 and so on. Now that there's a fair amount of engineering and work happening on the engine itself. But the other area of focus that is happening is on the tire, because the rolling resistance of the tire is what will affect the use of engine and the fuel efficiency of the vehicle as well. So the OEMs are getting more and more demanding with respect to the environmental impact of automobiles and asking more from tire manufacturers. That is one change. Second is more regulation on end-of-life tires as well. So where will the onus go? Will it be on the consumer? Will it be on the channel? Will it be on the producers? I think the government we are working with the government to see how do we come up with an effective system of correctly disposing end-of-life tires. In many countries, these tires go into landfills. In India, we find we are generally quite a jugaadu nation where there's very little wastage that happens of tires. They do get utilized, but very often they are used for high polluting places like brick kilns. They are used for pyrolysis where it is again broken down for reuse, but they don't follow the government norms. So they burn it and they use and develop fuel illegally or not following norms. So those are challenges that we are working with the government to see how do we solve some of these problems. But these are two things that come to mind on ESG. And then, of course, you have the investor community, you have society in general that is giving importance to ESG. And you're seeing it every day. I think it is important for us as citizens to give back to the environment when we are consuming resources. I think it's more than just for all stakeholders. It is important as a citizen to make that impact.
Okay, just one last bit on this. Do you see manufacturing processes for tires changing? Do you need to have more, carbon captures or things like that? Do you see a cost push on the manufacturing processes because of ESG?
The cost push, so to give you some examples that come in, a large part of the tire are fuel derivative products. So nearly 50 to 55% of our raw material are fuel derivative products. How do we move towards utilizing, for example, more silica in place of carbon black? Now, there is a cost impact that will come in on the raw material cost because you have something called a cyanide coupling agent, which is quite expensive. And so you have to manage your raw material cost as well as use of silica in the vehicle and also manage performance. So these are continuous technological challenges and breakthroughs that one has to do to improve our carbon impact on the industry. I don't see anything major happening necessarily on manufacturing. What can happen is your efficiency of certain machinery can get affected because you have higher element of silica, which causes more wear and tear of the machine. But will it fundamentally affect manufacturing? Will there be certain steps that will undergo change? I can't think of anything at this point of time.
Okay. Thank you very much, Anand. Thanks for your elaborate answer. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Nitij. The next question is from the line of Mr. Jay Kale. Jay, please unmute your line and go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Anand. Thanks, team, for an insightful presentation. My first question is regarding a two-wheeler market share. You mentioned that it ranges at that 28 to 30%. Now, if I remember correctly, you said 2-3 years back also, we used to be in the 28 to 30% range itself. So how do you see that market share evolving? Is it, we have seen capacity ramp ups from the largest player. So is it now, the low hanging fruits of market share increase in two-wheelers are largely behind us, and now this is more of a stabilized kind of market share? What are the levers you have to further gain market share on the two-wheeler side specifically? And second, related to that, on the pricing side, in the last 2-3 years, two-wheelers has been the lowest in terms of the price increases taken by the industry. However, in the last 3-4 months, maybe there has been a substantial increase specifically on the two-wheeler prices. So, how do you see that pricing evolving? Has the kind of intense competitive pressures stabilized, and now you see that the price increases from competition in the two-wheeler segment should be largely in line with the other segments, or you still feel that they will lag the other segments in terms of price increases?
I think your second question is a difficult one to answer. I would say that the pricing should be possibly in line, but that's just a guess that I'm saying. I don't have an answer as to one which will show higher pricing, but I would guess that it would be approximately in line with other categories. we do have a strong market share in the two-wheeler space at 28 to 30%. I don't think we will see dramatic shifts the way we expect hope to see in the passenger car space. But I think we will keep investing in our network, keep improving, finding white spaces where we are not present, finding areas where we can keep adding more channel partners, going deeper and deeper into rural economy. I think that is one area that will help, and continuously evolving on new products. So Puncture Safe, for example, can be a breakthrough product which can solve a lot of customers' problems. And we are seeing good traction on that. The challenge that we will have is with respect to manufacturability. Ramp up may take its own time. We have to do some experiments on pricing, learn on each of this. And those are some innovations that can help us as well. But I think it is going to be a continuous focus on branding, on network, as well as on the product, which should help us see a steady increase, maybe 1-2 percentage points every year. If we are able to see, we will be happy with that.
Sure. And just on related to that, on the OEM side, how do you see that? We have seen a new entrant who has maybe gained, further, gained market share in the OEM side more than the replacement side. If I have to talk of Maxis, how do you see that shaping up? And would we be kind of aggressively pursuing the two-wheeler OEM market share? And what would it stand currently?
Yeah, our two-wheeler OEM market share also is at a strong level. The share of business varies from, I'd say, close to about 20% going up to 50% with certain players. We would like to focus on a few players like Honda, for example, where our market share is slightly on the lower side. But the balance we are very happy with. We are hoping to be steady in terms of market share with those players.
Sure. Thanks and all the best. I'll come back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. The next question we'll pick up from the chat box. The question is from Mr. Smitesh Sheikh. What do you expect the gross margin to be trending throughout the year?
I'm not sure if we can give an estimate of that. Kumar, would you have a view or thought?
No. We normally don't give any forward-looking statement with respect to margins. But in general, I think we expect margins to be little lower in Q1 because the price increase has happened over the quarter, not exactly on the first day of the quarter, but as Anant mentioned, in April, May months, maybe later part of June. So gross margin could be lower as we take the prices. Okay, and if you margin should go back to the original levels once we start recovering the costs, which we hope to do it in Q2. Okay, and after that, it should go unless the raw material prices go up further, it should stabilize at that level.
Thanks, Kumar. The next question, again picking from the chat box, is from the line of Mr. Vijay Sathi. He asks that it is believed that the replacement market in TBR and TBB are expected to post normalized growth post-COVID, single-digit historical levels. Given our capacity increase and competition from player like MRF in the next 1 year, how does the utilization expectation build up? He is also asking if we can share quick details on our market share in the TBR space.
Right. So, yes, TBB, TBR, I would say is the least affected as a result of COVID. Passenger segment is one which has got more affected. Farm segment also, which was really booming, has mellowed a little bit during the quarter. And I think with good monsoons, hopefully things will bounce back. We've also seen an impact of COVID on rural India this time. So I think with that, we are seeing the commercial vehicle segment more buoyant than other categories relatively. But I'd say that short term is difficult to predict just because nobody knows whether there's going to be a wave 3, how will it be there, will it not be there, how much impact, what are the paces of vaccination that will happen. And therefore, short term is difficult to predict. But I think long term, as I shared, which is say 6-8 months hence, I'm assuming the vaccination levels will be at a very high level, and we can assume that say maybe from November, December onwards, things should hopefully get better, or maybe from January onwards, I think things will be much better, because the base has been much lower in the last 5 years, with the industry itself growing at 3-4% CAGR over the last 5 years. Things will be much stronger going forward. And with new players, I think this competition is always a part of the game. I think we have to just focus internally on making sure we are ahead in terms of the product. We are servicing the customers better, giving them a better experience, some of which I did share in my presentation.
Sure. Thanks, Anand. The next question is from the line of Mr. Joseph George. Joseph, we have unmuted your line. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, Joseph. Morning.
Good morning, Anant. Good morning, Kumar. So I have 3 questions. I'll take them one by one. So the first question is, when you mentioned that your market share target for the TBR segment is getting to about 14 to 15%, currently I think you mentioned it's about 7%. I wanted to understand how much more capacity would you have to add in TBR segment in order to support that kind of a market share?
Yes, so with our current approved market share capacity that we have set up, so what we have plus what we have announced, which is about another 1,000 crore investment in the truck space, we should be at about our targeted levels of market share.
Understood. Thank you. The second question I had was, with respect to pricing. So, if we compare the pricing behavior of, say, tire manufacturers and, say, vehicle manufacturers, one of the things that we notice is that when raw material prices go up sharply, both tire manufacturers and vehicle manufacturers, that's the OEMs, are behind the curve in terms of increasing prices, and we see margin impact in both. However, when commodities start correcting, we don't see vehicle manufacturers cutting prices of vehicles. However, we have historically seen tire manufacturers cutting prices of tires, which in effect means that when the commodity situation starts becoming favorable, tire makers are not able to get the full benefit, whereas on the way up, commodities would have hurt them. When do you think that behavior changing? I mean, right now we are in an inflationary environment, but maybe 3 months down the line or 6 months down the line, if commodities start falling, do you get a sense that the industry would be, disciplined in ensuring that there are no price cuts like we see with OEMs?
I think if you were to look at least the last decade, I feel that with raw material prices having come down, there was also a lag in terms of price cuts that were to happen. So I think and that helped in strengthening the performance of tire companies. I'd say especially from, say, 2012 to 2017 or so, things were better because of raw material price cuts and prices generally remaining better. So I think that maybe I'm not sure about a comparison between the auto space and the tire space, but there is a lag. I agree with you on both cases. So when commodities go up, there is a lag in pricing increase. But when commodities go down, there is a lag. What will happen in the future? I think it's very difficult to say. I can just talk a little bit more on patterns that I've seen. I know in the previous decade, 2000 to 2010, there was more lower pricing power in the industry than what we saw in the next decade. And that is purely out of competitive behavior that I can just share more on a pattern side that I'm seeing.
Understood, Anand. Thank you. And the last question that I had was with respect to free cash flows. So, as I'm sure you understand, one of the important factors that the investing community looks at for any company or any industry is that of free cash flow generation. And tires, has been somewhat lagging in that respect. Now, when you look at CEAT's, future plans with respect to capex, etc., when do you expect CEAT to be, FCF positive in the near future?
Kumar, would you like to add anything here?
Okay. No, I just want to mention before I respond to the question fully, we generated free cash flow positive last year. Okay, and our free cash flow positive was a little over 500 crores in 2020-21, and we used almost most of it to repay our debt. Okay, so whenever we get an opportunity, not that we had cut down our capex substantially last year, we also had about 480 crores of project capex and total capex about 650 crores. So whenever we get an opportunity, we will do. Okay, but going forward, I think in the past 3 years, our average capex, I'm talking about till 1920, we were incurring around 1,100 crores of capex. Okay, at a lower level of activities. Going forward, maybe in the current year, we may still spend closer to 1,000 crores because we spent less last year. But in the subsequent years onwards, I think the capex, quantum of capex could be a little lower. And as we would be growing in revenues and absolute EBITDA would be increasing, or absolute cash profit would be increasing. Okay, and maybe assuming we don't expand capacities, we are expanding capacities only because there is a volume growth, there's a demand, okay, which is a healthy cash outflow, okay, and we should be able to generate reasonable amount of free cash flow, positive free cash flow, and that's our view. And despite large amount of capex, we still managed our operating cash flows and free cash flows well in the last 2 years. Okay, and operating cash flow has been quite positive, has been increasing. A lot of focus on working capital helped us to also to sweat some of those current assets. Okay, so maybe next 1 to 2 years time, okay, we may have maybe break even as far as free cash flow point of view is concerned. Beyond that, if we don't add any more capacities, we should be able to generate it.
Got it. Thank you, Anand. Thank you, Kumar. That's all from my side.
Thank you. Thanks, Joseph. We'll take the next question from the Q&A chat box. The question is that, is there any technical difference when CEAT supplies tires to electric vehicles? And any target on tire share percentage towards electric vehicle in your overall portfolio in the next 5 years?
Yes, so I did answer the question on the electric vehicle piece, that there are a few technology changes, quite substantial. One is that on vehicle noise, in an electric vehicle, there is no noise that the engine makes, and so all the noise shifts from the engine to the tire. So working towards a low noise tire becomes important. Second is, the nature of an electric vehicle is to be sustainable and environment friendly. And therefore, similarly on the tire side, we have to develop the tire to be as green in terms of the material that we use, in terms of the rolling resistance of the tire also becomes important. So that's the second. And the third is, the vehicle is much heavier because of the weight of the battery, and the pickup is faster. So to that extent, the wear and tear of the tire can be higher in an electric vehicle, which also has to be managed. So between the three technologies, we merge these three and come out with our electric vehicle tire. Currently in India, at least on the four-wheeler side, there is very little shift that has happened, but we do have our electric vehicle tire under continuous improvement at this point of time. On the two-wheeler side, we expect there to be a fair amount of pickup. We have the world's largest two-wheel scooter EV plant coming up. We have many other startups that are coming up on the two-wheeler side, and that we are beginning to see traction. And we are very focused on that. And I did share that today our share of business would be about 50% plus levels on average with all the average two-wheeler OEMs.
Sure. Thank you, Anand. Taking another question from the chat box. This comes from the line of Mr. Aniket Mahatre. Last year, the Indian organized tire players gained market share due to import ban from China, and also as few MNCs were not allowed to import tires. Now, MNCs are allowed to import, and the recent example being Michelin. Do you expect domestic player market share to normalize back on account of this?
No, I think that information may not be correct. I think MNC imports are still not permitted, is what I understand. I believe OEMs have always been allowed to import. So tomorrow, if Maruti wants to import a tire or Hyundai wants to import, they can do that. But I'm not aware of any other tire company being allowed to import into India. So there's no change in the import scenario even for the coming year. I think Shubham's video has frozen. Shubham, can you hear us?
I think we have lost Shubham.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think let's give her a minute.
Yeah, yeah. Shall I, Vivek, would you like to ask your question?
I don't know. You can unmute him. Kumar, can you?
Yeah, okay, I'll try.
I don't.
From here, change my name.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes. Is that Shubham?
Yes, yes. Sorry, because of some technical errors, my network was lost. We'll take the next question from the text box itself. This comes from the line of Mr. Anand S. He asks, can you please touch upon the action plans to meet the new mandatory tire norms that have been recently proposed? The second part of his question is that what can be the potential change in RM mix and other allied costs due to this regulatory change? Can we see a 2 to 3% increase in realization?
Sorry, could you elaborate a little bit more on what norms you're talking about?
Since the question has come from the chat box, I'll request Mr. Anand to put a further elaboration in the chat box itself. We'll move on to the next question. Just if you can just allow me a minute. The next question is from the line of Mr. Kashyap Javeri. Kashyap, I have unmuted your line. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Goenka, for this opportunity. Two questions from my side. One, in terms of price increase, while there was quite an elaborative answer to the previous participant's question, just an extension to that. Now, in terms of price increases, has at least the industry stopped waiting for the market leader to take increases and trying to take lead in increasing the prices? That's my first question.
No, I don't think it is that there is one person that that anyone waits for price increases. We all have certain benchmarks, certain positions in the industry. For example, in the two-wheeler segment, CEAT is a very strong player, and we are able to take calls on our own. On the truck segment, you have another couple of players. You may benchmark certain SKUs, certain products on pricing, saying that, okay, we want to be at least equal to this player. On passenger car, you may have someone else that you may want to plan pricing. In some cases, you can take calls on your own. But it's not, there is no answer to it that that there is one player we have to wait for in a way, or there is some action. But I can clearly say that there is price increase happening as we speak in the month of June. And I think that will be beneficial. Clearly, this quarter will be quite challenging for the industry, but I think hopefully Q2 and things will get better even by Q3.
Sure. And second question is on the free cash flow question, which was also earlier asked. If I look at this year, there was a significant benefit which also came from slightly longer payable cycle, which has risen quite considerably. Would our the raw material suppliers be as comfortable or as benevolent as they are probably for coming year also? If I look at your payable days have gone up by at least about to about almost 90 days now versus an average of about 40-45 days earlier. So any outlook on that side? Would that continue to help us in creating cash flows?
Kumar?
Yeah, okay. See, the impact of payables is much more pronounced and visible as of 31st March. But if you look at quarter 2, quarter 3, okay, the benefit of reduction in working capital came largely on the inventory side too. Okay, so we had built some more inventory towards the end of March. Okay, and therefore that is not much more visible in terms of overall working capital benefit, just to the extent of little over 500 crores. So we would be able to sustain. You see, payables is not only what you see is on a particular day, which is 31st of March. Okay, so therefore, when you try to buy more inventory, obviously it is matched by increase in payables. Okay, and it is possible that payables could come down a bit in quarter 1 when you buy less materials and if there is any impact on revenues. But our confidence level with respect to maintaining working capital in terms of number of days on a composite basis at the current level is reasonably high. There could be a quarter or two, there could be a marginal movement here and there depending on what happened to the top line and amount of money that we have collected. So I think we will be able to sustain at that current level. We ended the year with very close to a negative working capital, maybe 100 or 200 crores of additional money. We've always planned from working capital point of view going forward, keeping in mind that we may have to have adequate inventory to service our customers, but confident of maintaining working capital at current levels.
Right. And just one last question. You mentioned about price increases in April, May, and June. What would be the cumulative number? And was there any additional discount negating that price increase?
No, discount point of view, no increase happened during the course of the year.
Okay.
Okay. So therefore, the realization, I think so. You're referring to realization per kg, whether it got impacted.
Yeah. So April, May, June cumulatively across various categories, what would be the number? Increase. I mean, what you highlighted about in your commentary, what would be the number for April, May, June increase?
I can get back to you on the exact. See, June I think is still pending. There will be there's likely to be some price increase at the end of this month. April and May, I would give a broad estimate of about 4%. I can get back to you on the numbers or on the key categories. It will vary category to category as well.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, Kashyap. The next question is from the line of Mr. Nishant Vas. Nishant, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks for the opportunity and congratulations for the presentation. Anand, my first question is on your, obviously you have an ambitious passenger vehicle market share target. So just trying to understand the fact that you guys have historically been stronger in the SUV space, and that category is doing much better than the overall industry. So can you shed some light in terms of what is your OEM market share in SUVs per se, if you guys track that, so that we can use that as a early benchmark to your market share ambitions? And on a incremental share of business that you might be winning with new customers or the larger OEMs which you have entered over the last few years, how has your SUV moved over, say, 3 to 4 years, say with a Maruti or a Hyundai?
On the purely on the SUV side, or you're saying passenger car and SUV side both?
So obviously SUVs has been your forte. So if you can shed some light on a granular basis on SUVs and on an aggregate basis also, that would be helpful.
I can share with you approximately the aggregate increase in share of business would be around at least 5% between FY22 expected average and say 3 years ago approximately. At least 5% increase. Our share of business will be over 15% in the OEM passenger car space this year.
So if I understood you correctly, you're saying in some of these OEMs you will get to potentially 20% plus SOV in the next couple of years.
Yes, some we are also at 50% or so, but yes, we will be closer to 20% in the say next 1 to 2 years time in passenger space. That's the potential that is there, 18-20% range.
Understood. The second question is on the TBR side, which obviously many speakers mentioned it's very competitive. And you briefly mentioned that you were doing benchmarking exercises on cost per kilometer basis. Obviously, you will have warranty costs also associated with it. So I'm just trying to think what is the selling strategy from a marketing standpoint vis-a-vis fleets, right? With you mentioned that the pricing is not a big difference. Right. So there has to be meaningful difference on cost per kilometer and savings, because at the end, that is the most important fact for a fleet operator. So can you shed some light in terms of what are the benchmarking results? What is the differential? Can you share on a broader basis with vis-a-vis the leaders?
Right. So as I said, our product benchmarking data shows that our performance is at par with the best in the market. Our pricing is about 1 to 2% lower than competition. The challenge is that I'd say in the early part of the decade, our product perception was not so good. And that's why, and it does take time for that shift in perception to happen. So while the product has done better, there is a shift in perception that is happening. And that's why we've seen about a 3% market share improvement. Our market share was as low as 3 to 4% in the truck space about, say, 3-4 years ago. We are today at about 8% kind of market share. And we hope to see this continuous change of a few percentage points at least every year over the next, say, 2-3 years' time till we reach about that 13 to 15% market share in the truck radial space. I was sharing about benchmarking, etc. So what happens is there are fleets as they are getting more organized, as you have larger fleets that are there, very often we sell directly to fleets. Now, how do you service the fleet? There are various ways of making sure you understand their application, you're fitting the right tire for that application. Sometimes they are unique applications because of the nature of goods they carry or the roads that they fly on, and can you customize certain products for them and providing them with the necessary data. Many of them rely on general heuristics or thumb rule to say that, okay, my vehicle does 4 trips between Bombay and Nagpur, and so that is the life of a tire approximately, or the life of a tire is 8 months or so. So how do you provide them with more accurate data saying that, okay, your today's cost per kilometer is 18 paisa per kilometer, for example, and now we will show you with the data that it is this much. We will be able to provide you 17 paisa or 16 paisa per kilometer, and that's the benefit that you will see as a customer, and we will do XYZ other elements that come in. So it is nearly like a consultant to a small a large fleet, for example, that you will be providing a lot more capabilities rather than just the tire, but you'll be providing fuel efficiency data, maybe driver usage data, and so on and so forth as well, using various connected vehicle technologies.
Understood. That was quite elaborate. Just a couple of more questions quickly. On your two-wheeler capacity, are you still going to keep pulling up on the outsourcing partner that you guys have? From a production standpoint, is there any change on the outsourcing model in terms of sourcing structure? Any thoughts on that?
So today we source about 40% or so of our capacities from our outsourcing partner. For future, so we continue to remain at a current absolute level going forward as well. In terms of growth, we have our Nagpur facility, which has a fair amount of upside from a supply perspective, and so we expect to grow from our own capacity.
So you don't intend to let go of that outsourcing capacity as of now?
Not at all.
Okay, and one small question on your financials. I think if you or Kumar sir, anybody can elaborate. You mentioned your fixed cost plan of 150 crores of cost reduction. So can you shed some light into what are the areas where you're looking to reduce this cost? Thanks. That's all.
Sure. So the few areas are on scrap reduction, for example, network redesign, looking at our utility cost, our power cost, moving towards solar power. That will also help. So these are just some examples of cost reduction that we've looked at. Kumar, would you like to add anything here?
Yeah. Ananth, you covered the large portion. Only a few other areas, looking at discounts. Okay, and then in the factory efficiencies on input output, how do you reduce the weight